Okay, let's kick this off. I'm going to use a design that's from frontendmentor.io. They have some nice challenges where you can practice your HTML and CSS skills and also a little bit of JavaScript. So I choose this one here, project tracking intro component. You can download this one, view challenge, and download starter files. And that one will get you all the files that you need for this tutorial. All right, so let's leave this site now. And we can check inside of the folder that we got when we download the files. So these are the files that I've downloaded. So this is the folder, project-tracking-intro-component-master. There you have it. So we have a folder with the design, and we have a folder with the supplied images that we need for the site. We have an index.html, a README file, where you can read about the challenge and stuff like that. And we have a style guide. So first of all, I want to install Parcel to have some nice little dev server to work with that will update automatically when I save and stuff like that. So I'm going to install Parcel on this one. So make sure to navigate inside of the folder you downloaded, project-tracking-intro-component-master. And first I'm going to make an npm init-y to create the package JSON file and set up the project. And then I run npm I parcel-bundler like that, and install Parcel. All right, that installed Parcel. Then I'm going to open up my code editor like that and check my package.json file. And inside that one, I want to add a script here to start up my dev environment. So dev. And we're going to run parcel index.html. Like that, save the file, and then I'm also going to create a new file that I call scripts.js. We're going to have a really small JavaScript for this one. All right, so that's the scripts file, and then I need to do some changes in the index.html file, and that's just below here. I create a script tag with an src./scripts.js. So that we use that script inside of there. And now I go back to my terminal, and I should be able to run this, npm run dev, and hopefully it will work. So it's on localhost 1234. That's the default one for Parcel. So I reload it, and you can see we have our site here, so that's great. So that's the dev server, and now we're going to check out the style-guide.md file. All right, so we can see here that this site is adapted to mobile 375 pixels and desktop 1440 pixels. We have a primary color, red, and we have some neutral colors here. So these are the colors that we're going to use, and then we have the typography. We have a font size of 18 pixels, and here we have the headings, call to actions, and navigation, and they link us to a Google font. So make sure to grab that one, copy the first one, go back to the browser, and we have the font and what was the weight, 400 and 700. So make sure to select the 400 and also the 700 and select embed and copy this one here. Go back to the code editor inside of the index.html up in the head, just below that link. We can paste that in, and I do some auto formatting. And then go back to the style guide, and we have another font. And this one should only be the weight 400. Select, embed, copy the code, go back to the code editor, the index.html file, and paste it below the other one. Okay. And then we have some default styling. They have a footer where they brand themselves. So I'm going to actually remove this one now for this little tutorial. So I remove that one and also the footer. So we have a clean HTML file. So that's our head, and then we have our body, and we can start creating our site. So if we take a look at the designs, for example, the desktop design, we have some active states. They want us to do some hover states, so we're going to fix that later. And this is the design on the desktop, and I can see right now that this is a little bit not tricky, but it's a little bit, makes it a little bit harder, this little image here, because it will stretch outside of the browser like this. And we also don't exactly know how it's going to look when the browser is wider than this design, but I'm just going to continue this, so it's going to show the complete image. All right. So we have this header with a logo and a menu, and we're also going to have a hamburger menu. And we have this little nice kind of hero section here where we have some text, a button, a call to action, and an image. So this is what we're going to build. We're not going to build the sub pages and stuff like that, but we are going to build a mobile navigation, and that looks something like this. It's going to be a complete start page with a menu that you can modify to your likings after this is done. I'm going to create the HTML first, and then I'm going to move on and make it mobile first. So I'm going to create the mobile styles first, and then I'm going to style it for desktop. Back to the code editor inside the index.html. First, I'm going to have a wrapper div for the complete site. You actually don't need that all the time, but that's a good convention I have. It's always good to have a wrapper in case you need it somehow. But in this case, I don't think we actually need it, but I'm going to create it anyways. So I have the wrapper, and then we have the header like that. And we have a nav. And first we have the logo, and that one is going to link to the start page. So I have an A tag and an href. We're just setting that to, a hash symbol. And this is an image. We don't have any descriptive text. So we set the area-label to maybe go home. That's for screen readers. And then inside we have the actual image. So we have the image src equals // images, and what's it called? I think it maybe the logo.svg. All right, easy enough. And then we have an alt logo, and I'm going to set the class on this one. That's logo. Okay, yeah, we have the logo here. That's great. So that's the logo. Then we have an unordered list with our menu. We have a class of menu on that one. We have an li element, and that li element is going to wrap an a tag with an href of a hash symbol, because we're not linking anywhere now. Okay, so the first one is going to be the product. And then I'll just copy this one. We have 5 of the items. And I'm going to change these ones. Features. No, we don't have 5. We actually only have 4 of them. We have the pricing, and then we have the login. All right, so that's the menu. Save it, and we can check if what we've got here. Yeah, we have them here. And then we're going to have the hamburger menu, and that's not going to be shown on desktop, of course. So I have a div with an ID of hamburger. Yeah, I'm using an ID here because it should be only one on the page. A menu, you can actually have more than one menu, but the hamburger is only going to be one, so that's why I'm using an ID here. I'm going to set the role to a button, and I'm going to have an area-label toggle menu, something like that. So that's the wrapping div for the hamburger. And then we have 2 images for this, one open and one closed. I shouldn't do it this way, actually, because I probably choose to create the hamburger with pure CSS, but in this case, they provide you with 2 images, so that's why I'm using them. So I'm going to have a class on this one that's hamburger __ open. I'm going to set the src to ./images / icon -hamburger.svg. And then I'm going to set an alt to menu -open and close it and auto format it. I have this formatting here. It looks kind of like when you do JSX stuff in React. I like to have it formatted like this. So you don't have to have that if you don't want that, but I think it's nice. All right, that's the first image. So I copy this one, and now we have the second one, and that one is going to be called hamburger __ close as a class name. And we have icon -close.svg as the file name, and the alt is going to be menu close. So that's the hamburger, and for now it is gonna show here it shows us these two images, but that's fine. We're going to fix that with the CSS later. And if we look here, we're going to create the main content, and that's the text here and the image and the button and stuff like that. So go back to the code editor, and we're going to be just below the header tag, the closing header tag. And we create a main tag, and we have a wrapping div that I call content. So class content. Then we have another div that's going to be the left dash column. That's the class name on that one. So that's the left column. And the left column is going to have an h3 tag. And I'm going to add a few classes later because we have some shared styling that I'm going to do that we can reuse and add those classes to, for example, the headers. So if we look at the design again, we're going to need to have a span here to style this one. So I'm going to create a span with new, all right. And then it says monograph dashboard like that. So that's the h3 tag. Then we have an h1 tag. That's the big header that we have in the design. And this one is going to say powerful insights into your team. Yeah, and that's the text that we have down below here. I can actually remove this text because I'm going to type it in anyway. Okay, so we have a p tag with the text. Project planning and time tracking for agile teams. All right, go back to the design. So we have created this header here, and we have created this header here, and we have created this text here. Now we're going to create a button and this text here. So I create another wrapping div that I'm going to call schedule, class schedule. And we have an a tag with an href of, you guessed it, a hash sign. And we have a class on this one that's going to be demo button for now. So that's the a tag. And then we have schedule a demo. You could probably also use a button here, but I think it's easier to just style this link instead of having a button also. So that's why. Then we have another h3 tag. I'm going to give it a class of preview and to see a preview. This is the text that I created here. That's the h3 tag. So I'm going to use these styles here, and I'm going to style it a little bit differently. Let's see what we've got so far. Yeah, we have everything here. That's nice. It looks like crap now, but that's why we have CSS. We're going to make it look beautiful later. Okay, so that was the left column. Then I'm going to create the right column. So div class right dash column like that. And for that one, we're going to have the image with an src of ./images. And we have this illustration-devices.svg. I'm going to set the alt to hero-image and a class of hero-image also on that one. And I close it, do some auto formatting. So now we can also create a new file that we call styles.css. And we're going to link it in the index.html somewhere up here, maybe. So we create a link with a rel of style sheet and an href of styles.css. And close it like that. So that is going to import the style sheet for us, and that's great. And that's all the HTML stuff we have to do for now. I'm going to add a few classes later when I create the CSS, so we're going to come back to this file. But this is everything we need. This is the skeleton of this site. So we're going to style it with CSS now in the next part. Okay, that's our HTML, and we're going to continue on to create the CSS for the mobile devices first, and then I'm going to style the desktop. So this is mobile first. So we're very cool and trendy here to make this mobile first. All right. So we have the site here. We have created all the HTML that we need for this one, and we're going to create the mobile styling now. And it looks something like this. So first, we have some style guides here. You can see that it's made for 375 pixels on mobile. So that's what I have here. I've reduced my browser down to that size. So that's fine. And also we have these colors here. So we're going to set these ones up as CSS variables. So that's the first thing we're going to do. So inside the styles.css, we type in :root. We create the variables at the root. And in the style-guide, we can copy this one here first. And when you create a CSS variable, you do that with double dash. And we have double dash red. And we paste in that color. And then we're going to have very dark blue. I can actually copy all of these here, move back inside of the styles.css. So I create double dash very dash dark dash blue. And we have the color here like that. And then we have double dash dark dash grayish dash blue. And then we have the color, paste it in, and double dash grayish blue, grayish dash blue, like that. Double dash, the last one, light dash grayish dash blue, something like that. And we have the color here. And end it with a semicolon. Remove these ones here and auto format it. I'm going to remove the sidebar. I also want to set a CSS variable with a max width of the content. So double dash content dash max dash width. It's going to be 1108 pixels, and that's because I've measured that up from the design. So that's how I come up with that value. So these are the CSS variables. And now I want to set some styling on all the elements. I want to do some resetting here before I do something else. Box dash sizing to border box. And I want to set the margin to 0 and the padding to 0 like that. And we can see that it kicks in now so that our CSS file is working when I save this one. Okay, then I want to style the body a little bit also. And we have this special case here in this design where this image actually moves outside of the browser window. And there's a lot of ways you can achieve this, but an easy way is to set the overflow X to hidden first, and then we're going to style the image as I'm going to show you later. So I set the overflow -X to hidden on the body, and that makes sure that the user can't scroll it horizontally. Overflow. All right. I'm going to set the color, and we grab the variable that's called dark grayish blue for that one. And we have a font family of Barlow, and we have the standard fallback fonts. Okay, so that's the body. And then we have this nice little background here, and we can actually create this with a pseudo element. We don't have to have an image for that one. So body, double colon after. And a lot of people wonder, when should you use double colon and when should you use a single colon? So the double colon is used for a pseudo element, and the single colon is used for a pseudo class. A pseudo element is kind of a virtual element in the DOM, and that's what this is, because you can't really see it, but we can style stuff after and before our elements. So that's a pseudo element. Okay, we set the position to absolute on this one. We set the background color to be, and we have a variable that's light grayish blue. All right. We set it on top, 0, right, 0. We want it to be positioned at the right corner here. Set index is going to be -1 on this one to make sure that it's below everything. We need to specify content, but we can set that one to an empty string. I set the height to 38 viewpoint height, and this is also values that I checked before, and I did it because I don't want to sit and try out a lot of values, because that wouldn't be fun in this tutorial, I think. But a lot of the time you just try out values to get the design that you really want, and to make it pixel perfect, you could maybe tweak 1 pixel, go and look at how it looks, and go back and forth like that. And so there's a lot of work going on there, and you'll be spending a lot of time, if you want it to be pixel perfect, doing stuff like that. And also I can tell you that you see that by now that I'm doing all of this stuff in vanilla CSS. I'm not using Sass or anything, so it may seem a little bit verbose sometimes, but I think it's a good practice to do it in plain CSS and use nothing else. So that's why. All right, we had the height, and then we have the width. It's going to be 50 viewpoint width. It's going to be half of the width. And we have something that's called border dash, bottom dash, left dash radius. And that one is going to be 50 pixels. Save it. And here you have it. We have the nice little background here. Sweet. So that's the body. Then I'm going to style the headers. So we have the H1 tag first. I set the color to a var of very dark blue. I set the font dash size to 2.6 rem, and I'm using rem in this case, and 1 rem is 16 pixels by default if the user haven't changed the font size in the browser, which is, I think it's not that common. So 1 rem is 16 pixels. This is essentially 2.6 times 16 pixels to get the font size. I set the line height to 100% on this one, and a margin of 1 rem and 0. Save it, and you can see that it changed. We haven't made it look like this yet, and that's because I'm going to create a class that we can use on many different elements. So I'm going to create kind of a shared class, and I'm going to do that a little bit later when I style these ones first. So we have the H3 tag. I set the font size to 0.95 rem. The letter spacing is going to be 5 pixels. You can use rem also if you want to do that. We set the color with a variable of grayish blue, like that. And the font weight is going to be 400 on this one. Save it. You can see that it changed there. That's great. Then we have this little kind of a pill here. So we're going to style it. We created a span for that one. So H3 and span. I set the padding to 3 pixels and 10 pixels. I set the height to 20 pixels. Margin dash right is going to be 10 pixels. I set the letter spacing to 1 pixels. The font dash weight is going to be 700 on this one. And the color is going to be white. I set the background to a variable of very dark blue. You could also, of course, use background dash color like that. And I set the border radius to 20 pixels to give it this nice little rounded corners. Save it and see what we got. Yeah, we've got the pill here. Great. It's working. So that's the H3 span. H3. It's very difficult for me to say as a Swedish. I don't like saying that, but that's okay. I have to say it sometimes. Okay, we have the P tag. We have a font size of 1.125 rem and a max width of 280 pixels. And that's because you can see that it's changed row here. So I made a max width to make it look exactly like it does here. Then it will break here after the tracking and put the rest on a new row. But this doesn't look right. So I'm going to create a shared class for this one. And I create a little comment here. Shared classes. This is how you create a comment in CSS if you didn't know that. A / and an asterisk. And you end it with an asterisk and a /. So I create a class that I call font-shared. Font-family. This one is going to be the Barlow condensed. And we have the usual fallback fonts. I'm going to text transform it to uppercase. So that's the one you use to transform all the letters to uppercase in CSS. Okay, so we have this font shared now, and we can go back inside of the index.html file and apply this class to wherever we need it. So first we're going to need it in the nav, because the menu is going to have this styling also. So nav, we set the class to font-shared. like that. You can see that it's changed up here now. And then down below at the left column, the h3 tag is going to have the same class, font-shared. All right, and then we also have the h1 tag that's going to have this class, font-shared. And then we have this link here with the class of demo button. It's also going to have the font-shared. And we have another h3 class here that's going to have that class also, font-shared. And I think that's all of them. So save the file and see that it's magically it turns to look like this design here. Sweet. And we don't need to be in the index.html anymore. So close that and go back inside of the styles.css file. And I'm going to continue the styling here. So that's the shared class. Then we have the wrapper, the div that wraps everything we have inside of the body. So dot wrapper, I'm going to set the max width on this one. And we have that nice little variable called content max width. I set the margin to 30 pixels on top and bottom and auto, and this will center the content when we set this to auto. I'm going to set the padding to 0 and 30 pixels. Save it and see what happens. You can see we have this nice little spacing around now. So that's great. We can't really see the max width because that will kick in on the desktop size. So we'll see that one later. Then we're going to style the navigation. So I put in a little comment there also. So we have the nav, and it's going to display like a flex. And I align the items to center, and I justify the content to space dash between. Save it. And you can see that it plays all these elements here now in a row. And that's really neat because when you use space between, it will divide the space equally. So now it has the logo, the menu, and the hamburger and stuff here. The menu is not going to be shown on the mobile devices, so this will not be visible later on. But space between is really great, as in this case, in the design here, it will create a space here and put them on each side of the viewport. So that's great, using justify content space between for that. Okay, I set the position to relative. And I have to do that because I'm going to absolute positioning the navigation on mobile devices. So I have to have this as relative, otherwise it won't work. So I set the font weight to 700. I set the font dash size to 0.9 rem. And I set the letter dash spacing to 1.3 pixels. All right, save it. And it's changed a little bit there now. And then we can actually style the logo. I'm just going to set the max width on this one to 25 pixels, and that will make it a little smaller on the mobile devices as it is here. So that's why. Okay. Then we're going to style the menu itself. So nav UL, it's an unordered list. Display is going to be none. And that's because we just want to show this menu when the user presses the hamburger button. And we want to close it also when the user presses the X. So we set the background color to white. We position it, absolute. I'm going to set it 50 pixels from top. And it's going to have a width of 100 pixels, of 100%. The padding is going to be 0 and 20 pixels. The text dash align is going to be center. I set the font dash size to 1.1 rem. And we're going to have a nice little box shadow on this one. And if we look at the design, if I bring it in here, you can see that we have this little box shadow around here. So that's the one that I'm setting here. And these are all, of course, values that I've tried out. So that's why I know them from my head now. 0 pixel, 5 pixels, 12 pixels, and 0 pixels. And we're going to set an RGBA for this one, 0, 0, 0, and 0.2. And this is the alpha channel. So this is essentially a black that I'm doing transparent. Okay. Then we have the list style type. It's going to be none. And the set index is going to be 1000. So we make sure that it's placed on top of everything. Save it. And you can see that it disappeared now. And that's no good because we want to be able to show our menu. So let's leave the styles.css file and move inside of the scripts.js file. And I'm going to create a very, very small JavaScript here. It is possible to create a menu like this with just CSS, but it's a little bit more advanced CSS. I'm going to do it with the JavaScript instead. So I'm creating an immediately invoked function expression, and that's because I don't want to pollute the global scope. So you do that by creating parentheses, then you have your function, and you call it immediately like this. So inside here, I'm going to grab my hamburger. I'm going to remove the sidebar. From document dot query selector. I grabbed a div with an ID of hamburger. That's our hamburger menu. Don't know why it complains. The document should be there. Okay, but I think this will work anyway. So I have another const with a menu, and I'm bringing in the menu here. So document query selector dot menu. All right. Then I'm going to set an event listener on the hamburger. So hamburger dot add event listener. And it's going to be a click event. So we have the event and an inline function like that. So from current target dot class list, I'm going to toggle it. So I'm going to toggle this class that's called show on and off. And I do the same on the menu. So menu.classlist.toggle and auto format it. And this is everything you need in your JavaScript. It complains here also. Okay, yeah, it's some TypeScript stuff here. I don't really know why it's set to use TypeScript. But all right, let's ignore that for now. But you can see now in the console here that it will apply the class show on and off when I press this button here. So we have to create this class that's called show in our CSS. So close these scripts, go back to your styles.css. We have the nav, the unordered list, and .show. When we apply that class, we display it as a block. Okay, so that should be enough. When we click here now, it turns the menu on and off. And that's sweet. So we're going to style the menu because it looks like crap now, and that's not good. So first I styled the nav UL and all the LI elements. I set the margin to 20 pixels and 0. That will make some nice spacing here. Then I had the nav UL li :hover. That's going to be when we hover over this one. So I set the text decoration to an underline, and that's from the design. They want you to create an underline. We haven't styled this yet, so we have an underline all the time, but we're going to remove that soon. And then if we look at the design again here, you can see that we have this nice little line here. So I'm going to create that one now. So nav UL li last dash child before. So we select the last child and we have the pseudo element before that one, and we can create the line inside of there. So I display it as a block. I set the content to an empty string. I set the width to 100%. And we have a height of 1 pixel. The line is going to be 1 pixel height. And we have a margin of 20 pixels and 0. And we have a background color variable -- grayish blue. And I set the opacity to 0.4. and save it and see what we've got. Yeah, we have that nice little line here in the menu, so that's sweet. And also, I know that there's a million ways to do stuff in CSS, so if there's something that you don't like, please don't bitch on me, because I know there are several ways of doing stuff. And I may also have missed something, or yeah, you never know. But don't bitch on me because you think it should be done in another way. Okay, we're going to remove this ugly underline and purple color. So nav-ul, select all the li element and the a tag. And set the text decoration to none. And also the color is going to be from the variables very dark blue. Oops. Very dark blue. And that's sweet. And then we have some other stuff to do here, because you can see that the login should be a brighter gray color. So we're going to fix that. We can do that by selecting the nav-ul li last dash child and the a tag. And we change the color on that one. So color var, we're going to have the grayish blue. Save it, and there you have it. That's the menu. Sweet. So we're going to style a hamburger now, because we have 2 images, and I wouldn't have done it with 2 images. I would have created this one in pure CSS, but the brief says that you should use these 2 images, so that's what we're doing. That's also important when you, for example, work for a client. You should listen to the brief and what they want, and you could, of course, come up with better suggestions. We have this brief, and you should stick to the brief and don't try to go all over the place in other directions than the brief. All right, so we have an ID of hamburger. That's the hamburger wrapper. We display it as a block, and we set the cursor to a pointer. I want that nice little hand cursor on this one. You can see that we have that one now. Sweet. And then we're going to create the CSS for make it change between this hamburger and the X button. So hamburger dot hamburger underscore underscore open, and we're going to have the same styling applied to hamburger dot show the hamburger underscore underscore close. And what we'll do here is we set the display to block like that. Then we can actually copy this one, paste it in below, and change some stuff here. This one is going to be hamburger close. And this one is going to be hamburger open. So we swap them out, and we set display to none and save it. And hopefully this will work now. Yeah, you can see now it changed image here, depending on if the menu is open or not. So we have a working mobile menu. Sweet. What else do we have to do? Yeah, we have to style the main content, and I'm not going to use this. We're going to have this image instead. So I've put a comment here, main content, something like that. So we have the main. We set the margin top to 65 pixels. And that will push it down. I'm going to close the menu also. So it will push it down and look like the design. Then we have the content div. And we display it as a flex. And set the flex dash direction to column dash reverse. And when I say this, watch closely now what happens here. Boom. It changed these out here. So it put the image first and the text and all the things down below it. And that's how it should look on the mobile. But if we didn't do this, it will place the image below the text. So it's really great to use the flex column reverse to do stuff like this. You could use grid also, and I actually tried it with grid before, but I think, yeah, flex is good enough, so we don't have to involve using grid in this one. And that's really neat. So we're going to change this direction on the desktop view later. Okay, content. Then we have our left column, left dash column. We set the padding dash top to 85 pixels. And we set the width to 100 pixels, to 100%. All right. So it will give it a little bit spacing. Then we have the right dash column. And we set the width to 100% on that one. And now we're going to tweak the image to look like this. So dot right dash column img. I'm going to set the width to 148%. It's really hard to get it exactly like this one here, because it will change obviously when you scale the viewport. But something like that I think will be fine. It actually looks like it's a little bit smaller now, but I think, yeah, I don't know really exactly why. It has some padding here also that shouldn't be there. I think that will be fixed soon when we create the other classes. Okay, let's try it out. So I got the demo dash button. Text decoration is going to be none. The color is going to be white. We have a font size of 0.85 rem. The font dash weight is going to be 700. The letter spacing is going to be 1.2 pixels. I display it as an inline block. That's because I want this text here to see a preview. I want that on the same row. Otherwise, it will push the other one down. So we set the background color to a var of dash dash red. I set the padding to 12 pixels, 25 pixels. And a border dash radius of 5 pixels. And I want a nice little transition on this one when you hover over it. So transition all 0.3 seconds, and I have a little bit of easing. And there you can see we have the button. Sweet. And then we can set the hover state. So dot demo dash button colon hover opacity is going to be 0.7. Save it and see what we got. Yeah, this nice little transition here when we hover over it. Sweet. Then we have the dot schedule that we created before. That's the text below the button now. Margin dash top is going to be 25 pixels. No, that's not the text. It's the wrapper around all this. So that's why we got that nice little space here now. So the demo button is inside of the schedule div. And then we have the other text that's called preview. I display that one also as an inline dash block. I set the letter dash spacing to 2.5 pixel. I set the font dash size to 0.9 rem and the margin dash left to 20 pixels. And there you have it. It moved up to that row now just below this button. And we just have to fix this little thing here because there shouldn't be any padding or margin here or what that is. I have to look that up and see why it is like that. So I bet this one is maybe because the image itself has some spacing. So we can check that one out. Illustration. Yeah, and you can see it has some space here. And we can do a little quick fix about that. So if we set the margin to minus 20 pixels or something. Yeah, and you can see that it adjusted here now. So that's great. Maybe increase the width a little bit to make it a little bit bigger. Maybe something like that. And I can also see that the background should actually be higher. So we can maybe, yeah, something like that. I think maybe even more, 44, 43. And then this space here should also be bigger. So padding top, set that one to 100 pixels maybe. 120. Yeah. Something like that. You can tweak these values yourself if you want to do that. Okay, so let's move on to the desktop styling. And we are going to look at the design for this one. So this is what we have to achieve now. Okay, so let's start. First, I'm going to have this in desktop mode with this crazy big illustration now. Okay, back inside of the CSS file, we're going to create a media query. I'm just doing one media query in this tutorial. You can do more of them if you want to do that. Media queries, something like that. And I'm going to have a media min-width of 40 EM. I'm using EM units here. If you do a little bit of research on the internet, it said that it's best to use EM because that will work on most of the browsers. So I'm using EM for this one. So you can count for yourself here, 40 EMs times 16 pixels, and then you have the breakpoint. All right, we're going to change the H1 header font-size. It's going to be 4 rem. The margin-bottom is going to be 30 pixels. And now we can't really see the changes here. But you can see here that it got bigger. Then I'm going to change the wrapper a little bit. I set the margin to 65 pixels and auto. Like that. Give it a little bit more spacing. Then we're going to change the logo. I set the max width to 100% on this one because we made it a little bit smaller on mobile devices and now it has its original size. Then it's time to make the navigation appear. So nav UL display block, that should make it visible, and it has this mobile appearance now, and that's what we're going to change. I think I could do something maybe like this. That will probably work. I set the position to relative. I set the background to be transparent. The width is going to be auto, and the top 0, padding 0, font-size 0.9 rem, and box shadow to none. Save it. And there we have that one, but we need to change some more stuff here. So the nav UL, all the li elements, I select them. So display inline-block. And I set the margin to 0. And that will make it appear in a line, in a row instead. But we have to make some other tweaks here to make it look great. So this line, we don't want that in the design now. They want us to have this dot instead. So I'm going to change some stuff here now. So nav UL, I select all the li elements, but I use this selector that's called not, and I select everyone but the last child. I set the margin right to 36 pixels. We don't want this margin on the last element, so that's why I use this selector here. Then we're going to style that line to a dot instead. So nav ul li last dash child dot colon before. So before the last child in this list, I'm going to display it as an inline block. I set the width to 6 pixels, the height to 6 pixels, and the margin is going to be 0.47 pixels. These are also values that I've tried out already. 2 pixels and 0. I set the border dash radius to 50%. Save it. And there we have that nice little dot instead. So this is working as expected now. Sweet. We just want to remove the hamburger. It shouldn't be there on desktop devices. And that's an easy one. We have the hamburger and display none. And you can see now that this one moved to the edge here, and that's because of the flex that I told you about before. So we justify the content to space between. Okay, so then we have the main content left to style for desktops. So main margin dash top is going to be 125 pixels. We're going to have a little bit more spacing on desktops. Then we have the content div. We set the flex dash direction to row. So you can see now it's in a row here. So that's super sweet. So before we had reverse column, and that's why it positioned the image above all this content, but now it looks like it should here. Then we have the left column. I set the width to 50%. I set the padding dash top to 50 pixels. And then we have the dot right dash column. And that one is going to have a width of 50%. And then we have the right dash column IMG. I set the width to auto. Save it and see how it looks. It looks great, I think. Some more small tweaks and we'll be done with this. We have the demo we have the demo button. The font size is going to be 1 rem on desktops. We set the padding to 15 pixels and 35 pixels. And this one will make this button a little bit larger. Yeah, so it's a little bit bigger now. Great. And then we have the dot schedule or schedule. I don't really know how to pronounce that. Margin dash top. 65 pixels. Right. And the last one is going to be the preview. We're going to change the letter spacing a little bit. It's going to be 4.5 or pixels. And the font dash size is going to be 1 rem. Save it, auto format it maybe and save it. And there you have it. This should be it. This is the site. And it looks pretty close, a little bit different maybe with the background and how it's positioned. But that's also because if we do it like this, you can see that it looks pretty similar at least. So there are some small tweaks you can do. Also see that this works. Yeah, there are some stuff here. Maybe should have another breakpoint here to tweak stuff before it goes over to the mobile view. But this works, and we have the menu. Great. So I would say it's pretty responsive. Some few tweaks, and it will be fine. Great. So that's how you build a responsive website, or at least a one page, because we haven't done the other pages. And I usually don't do this kind of projects in this channel, but it was fun to try out I shouldn't say just do HTML and CSS, because it's not just, if you're really good at CSS and styling stuff, you will be a much, much better front-end developer for sure, even if you don't do it daily. So this is how you do it. If you like this channel, please support me and subscribe. I will put up weekly content on front-end development, or maybe even some back-end development, and a lot of React stuff and things like that. So see you in another one.